Thank you. Thank you for coming to day 4 of our May monthly training, how entrepreneur leaders build and sustain relationships. And the more technology we have and we use, it's important that we keep the human connection high, just as high. And it's important to understand nowadays that it takes both to build relationships. It also, what I talked about on day 1 is a lot of us think we're building really great relationships and we know how, but we don't actually know how to move a relationship along depending where it is. And there are a lot of nuances around it. And that's what I talked about on day 1. On day 2, I talked about the framework. And the framework is a genuine interest in really wanting to build a relationship with someone, and that you need to be present. Present actually means in the moment, not thinking what they just said, not thinking what you should say next. It is your 100% attention, energy, connection in that moment, speaking to someone. So important. So important. It's probably the number one that I think is the most important, because when I've trained other coaches and consultants and therapists how to build transformation into their programs, one of the things that happens is people want to get ahead of the process for the other person. And really what ends up happening, the person doesn't really care about your process, but they care about how they think through what you're telling them, what you're sharing with them, what you're advising them on. And so it's important to stay in the moment and to not get ahead of the situation, because you're not present when you get ahead of the situation. So your questions become in the moment. If you're present, your next question or your next statement, it actually continues where they are at the moment, and it helps them get to where they feel they need to go. And it allows you to see that, and it allows you to figure out what is the next step for them once you go through that. So many times, like I said, coaches, consultants, service providers really make a true mistake within their programs around not building that presence into their relationships with clients, with potential clients, with colleagues, with referral partners, partnerships, whatever it is, whatever category that relationship is in. So presence is really, really important. You want to be heartfelt and also logistical all at the same time. You want to be interconnected. You want to get to know them. You want to know them. You want to know about them. You want to know their story. That's one of the things that we spent some time on Tuesday. You want to build on that relationship. And the way you do that is you build on trust. You build on trust. People want to know that you've got their back and whatever is appropriate for the current relationship status. And it's important for people to know that about you and to gain that through language, because that's what happens. It starts with language first, and you back it up with action, with follow through, whatever the next step is going to happen. So then you want to also, of course, encourage people. So important to encourage them, but not that fake encouragement we see so much on Instagram, especially over the top conversations, such enthusiasm. I mean, if that's truly who you are, then okay. But I'm telling you, the other person is feeling that over the top enthusiasm coming as a force towards them, not as the energy you want coming towards them. And it kind of can feel fake when you're building a relationship. So it's so important to remember that. So I see that a lot. And it maybe works when part of your social media strategy, but it doesn't work in a conversation as much, especially when you're closing someone in a sales conversation or building a genuine relationship with a colleague, building your inner circle, which we talked about on yesterday, Wednesday. And so, and then you want to also influence, right? You want to influence, and the way you influence, which is with your emotional IQ. You need to be in control of your own emotions, to recognize them when they come up, to understand when someone else's emotions come up, and that you know how to manage that for you and manage what's going on for the other person. If emotions are out of control, then the relationship's not going anywhere. Excuse me. But, and I'm not talking about any chaoticness here, but sometimes what happens, an emotion shows up, and it's really more of a projection in the conversation, because it triggered something for you or triggered something for them, and it all of a sudden it can get like this, and you're like, wow, how did we derail this conversation without any, like true anger coming, or just anything that you would think. When I say chaotic, a lot of people think what I mean is that there's a lot of anger and yelling and screaming, and it's not. A chaotic conversation can be very, very calm, because it's not getting you anywhere, and you're building just on the emotion instead of managing them and using language to ask the next question or make the next statement that allows people to really focus and be present, right? I talked about presence before. That's what you're always trying to get to. So emotional IQ, a lot of people talk about it. You can get a certification on it, but it's really about self-mastery of your emotions and self-mastery and mastery of others' emotions when they come up, and you recognize what they are. Now, more emotions show up when you're discussing money. So no matter, even if it's not in a sales call, money's the one that consistently brings out emotions in people that you don't expect. So you have to train yourself about that. You have to know what comes up all the time. I've been in the personal growth, business building space for nearly 25 years now. And I'm here to tell you, no matter the context, whether being a sales rep or actually being a psychotherapist for a while, a consultant to a lot of our aerospace companies in our area, and now what I do now in helping people build their business and then to understand the psychology of how they can transform their own clients and make sales really easy for them. Here's what happens when you're talking about money. It's emotionally charged almost more than any other subject. And the other subject that comes up a lot, even in a business discussion, especially around money, the next one that comes up is, what will my spouse think? Because there's a lot of relational things going on there. So for you to be in a business relationship with people, depending what category you're in, right? Whether it's a colleague, whether it is a referral partner or a client or a potential client, even your audience, your emotional IQ is extremely important, and for you to get knowledge and understanding of others. And then, of course, I had said earlier, you want to build trust, and trust is built on language and then follows up with action. And they want to know you can have their back, depending, what kind of relationship it is. They just want to know what you say is what you mean, and what you're going to do is you're going to do, and you're going to follow up on it. And who you say you are is true. So many people, when you connect with them on LinkedIn, we see this a lot now. Sometimes you will get a message following the connection, and it's just like, whoa, wow. So it goes two ways. Someone presumes something about me, which doesn't make me happy. Or then someone after the connection is telling me how great their stuff is. And then I need it. Well, you don't know that. But the third one, I don't mind. And a lot of people get mad because of the first two is, here's what I do. If that's something that you're interested in right now, just let me know and we'll connect. The language and connection, when you're first making connection, whether it's on social media, LinkedIn, or however, text message, meeting someone in person, the simpler the language, the shorter the questions or the statements, the easier it becomes, and it allows people to come in. And we're going to talk about that today. What we're going to be a little bit more practical in terms of what kind of questions make it easy for you to be able to ask and to build that relationship and to get the right kind of information, depending what kind of relationship you're trying to build here. But what I talked about yesterday, I just want to comment on that, is, you want to build a relationship pool of what I talk about is your inner circle, people you can count on, people that are entrepreneurs, people that are not entrepreneurs, but you really trust, so you can get a inner circle when you need them and when they need you, in terms of wanting you to win and you want them to win, that you are as invested in their success as they are invested in yours, and that you can get feedback in a feedback that has a lot of trust and integrity, that it's not going to come out of the inner circle. That's what's really important. People have gotten burnt a lot because in the entrepreneurial space, there's more talk on the outside, or what people make, what people do. And the authenticity of that can be really powerful. But a lot of people don't realize when they're spilling things they shouldn't spill, and it comes across a different way. So you want to spill that into your inner circle. And, it can be one person, it can be 3 people. If you're really extroverted, you may need 10 people. My inner circle is about 3 to 4 people at any given time. Some of them have been with me for years. And sometimes there's always been 1 or 2 that have come out here and there, because relationships change, right? Some people come in for a season, some people come in for years, some people come in forever. And so you have to remember that. And so you want to be able to inspire others by your actions, inspiration, passion, and purpose. And the reason I brought this up yesterday is because after the last 2 years, people are tired. They're tired, they're exhausted. A lot of people don't know that. Business is different. Business keeps changing. The fundamentals of business doesn't change, but how you engage with people, how you're getting clients, it's all shifting. And, people are exhausted, and they feel like they can't keep up with everything that's going around. Well, first of all, I'm here to tell you don't have to keep up. That's why an inner circle is helpful. Everybody brings something to the table, but it's also about you bringing your passion, your purpose, your authenticity, your actions, and your integrity all match. So, beside your inner circle, you want to build relationships that with people that you can work with and partner with, that you actually enjoy, that you like. And it's based usually on their character, their competency, and their chemistry with you. And if one of those is out, they're not going to be a close relationship, or they're not going to be, maybe for that category of relationship, exactly what you're looking for. You can shift that relationship to something else if you still want to stay connected to them. You do that with your language and your energy, and you shift it in a way that someone is not knowing that you're doing that. It just becomes part of your natural conversation. You get to choose. So work with people you love, partner with people you really enjoy, have colleagues that are fantastic. And even if you don't talk to them all the time, that they're there for you. And that competency, that character and chemistry are so important. And then yesterday, we also talked about emotional self-management, that emotional IQ, you're being self-motivated. It's really hard for a lot of people in the entrepreneurial space, entrepreneurial leaders, to consistently be motivated. And so it's up to you to be self-motivated, how you get that. And people want to know that you're constantly there in some way, depending how the relationship is and what it is and what category it is. And you want to have good boundaries with relationships. You don't want to be giving away all of your proprietary information for nothing. But at the same time, you want to be generous. It's a fine line being an entrepreneur nowadays, knowing what where your generosity needs to land and where you need to have great boundaries and consistently keep them up. Besides, I talked about presence as number one. My number two is great boundaries, because it helps people to understand you, and it allows you to train people how they treat you. And it's important. People treat you the way you allow it. People treat you the way you break your boundaries. And if you have great boundaries and you have emotional self-management and you're present, my goodness, you are a rock star in building relationships. So important. And so yesterday, one of the last things I talked about that I want to mention today is how a lot of people derail themselves. Over 50% can derail themselves with relationships. And it's a shame. Especially the ones you miss, and you realize that, there was something there that could have been a great relationship and somehow it didn't happen. So I want you to look at yourself and see if you had the inability to self-manage yourself, or you had a little bit of a twinge before it became a red flag, that you should have talked about something way at the beginning. When you don't talk about something that's bothering you, or there's a glitch all of a sudden in the conversation, it's your responsibility in that moment to stop and actually wonder out loud, gosh, I'm curious about what just happened there. If you guys to talk it out, it could be even around humor. You can use humor, but it is your responsibility not to let that go so long that it becomes a way of communicating and it becomes passive aggressive. That is no way to build a relationship, is being passive aggressive. If you have a passive aggressive personality, you are a bad communicator, and it's difficult to build any relationship. And usually why you're passive aggressive is because you don't like conflict. And most people that don't like conflict create more conflict and become more passive aggressive. I see it all the time in any space. When I was a psychotherapist, oh my goodness, that happened a lot. When I saw couples, happened a lot with kids being passive aggressive because they were tired of listening to their parents. And I see it in the entrepreneur space, especially with clients, when you don't have a good handle on your own self-mastery and your self-management, and you want to know to build that relationship, and you can't. And you have to look at yourself first. So conflict and then stress. Because what we do when there's conflict, stress, we bring our interpersonal problems to the workspace we don't even know, and we project onto other people. And when you do that, there is such a disconnect over relationships. So I want you to pay attention to all that. I want you to take that in. I want you to start making categories of relationships you want to build. I want you to look at the relationships you have now and see if you want to build them even further and deeper. Who in your space do you want to get to know well? Maybe someone that's really well known, a guru, I'll say that for lack of a better word. I don't usually use that word, but is someone you really want to get to know well, they're way ahead of you, and how you want to do that. Remember the two principles of relationships right off the start. You go first, and don't allow any situation to have more meaning than the relationship. They have to come in balance. And I've always used the example because it's the easiest one to understand. If you come into a sales call and you are more committed to getting the sale than the relationship, that's when people feel you're the used car salesperson, even though the language you're using and what you're doing there's nothing wrong, but it's the energy of the meaning of wanting that sale. We all want to bring in new clients. So hold on. So don't get me wrong. It's not wrong to ask for business or to want to close a client. It's when the energy of that becomes more than the person you're speaking to or you're texting with or you're on Zoom with. And so you want that even. And when that energy and chemistry are even, people can hear you asking for business. They don't define your conversation as yucky or around sales or not wanting to do it or not willing to listen what you have to offer. And the opposite happens too. I see this all the time where someone is in a sales conversation. The other person knows it's a sales conversation because they've agreed to it, and they make the relationship more important than the sales conversation. So now you've done the girlfriend method, which is fine if all you want is another colleague. But if you came in with this specific reason for this to be a sales conversation, you've just confused that person, and you don't ask for business, so you don't get business. You've made that more than the conversation. So they always have to be even. They don't have any more importance than the other because we're talking to our other human being in front of us. That connection is necessary. And if it's agreed upon conversation, then business does come up, and they're okay with that as long as they don't feel your energy of making the situation of getting the sale more important than them. And they will say no every single time, and you won't have business. So that's what's going on. All right. So today I wanted to talk about how you can simply start building relationships once you get a connection with someone, no matter if it's a potential client, a partnership, a colleague, anyone you want to build further. Look at the ones you already have. I would even say, look at them from the standpoint, do I want to deepen this relationship? And if it's yes, then put that in that column to be able to do that, because you will go first on that. And do you want to continue that relationship, or does it need as much importance as it does right now? It's okay to come in and out of that. And so some of the simplest ways is asking simplest questions to anybody, any type of relationship. And so I'm going to go through a few questions because I think it's important for you to have examples of how, when you're in conversation, what's a great short question that not only deepens that next step in the process of building the relationship, or gives you more information so you can deepen that relationship, or allows that person to tell their story for you to know about them. All the things I've talked about in the first 3 days of this training. So the first one is one of my favorites, and I always put it first. I don't leave it for last because I want you to be able to get it. And it's easy, and all you have to say is tell me more. If you say to someone, tell me a little bit about you, and they say something that intrigues you, you're going to say, tell me more about X. Tell me more. Oh, that's fantastic. Tell me more about how you got started. Tell me more. That's getting to know them. That's having presence. Another thing another question I love, which really short, is what's going on? It can be asked in a lighthearted way. It can be asked, and if someone comes that feels troubled to the conversation, like, what's going on? Can I help you? Is really what you're saying. Hey, what's going on? It's a catch-up question. It's 3 words. A little bit more, 3 to 4 words. What's going on? Because you are wanting to get to know them more, get to know their story, know about them, right? What's happening is another version of what's going on. I think what's happening can be more in the moment, and what's going on is a little wider scope. And so even some of the nuances, you're going to say, Lorianne, that is like, why are you making a distinction around that? Because here's what I know about language. When I did my internship as a professional psychotherapist, I went to an organization that was in the forefront. Back then, they called it narrative therapy, but they call it something else now, and it's slipping my mind. It's a well-known theory and practice in therapy, that it's our language and how we language that helps transformation in the room, no matter what the problem is. And there's a whole theory around it. Maybe someday I'll do a video on it, especially for you coaches, consultants, and those of you that want to create not only the logistical pieces of what you do for people, but the transformational pieces that are important for people to feel like they got much more from you than anything else. So the nuances, even of these questions, are really, really important. So what's going on and what's happening, little bit of twist on language, it could be appropriate for several situations. And so know the difference for the people you want to build relationships with or already have relationships with. What's important? What's important? You can even ask it just like that. What's important for your business? What's important for your relationship with your clients? What's important for your health? What's important is a different way of trying to get someone with a lot of language to talk about what's on their mind. And so what's important gives you a context of for them to have this thought process. Well, you know, what's important for me right now? Boom. What's important for me in my business? You know, I need more clients. I need to be out there more. I need more visibility. I'm messing up my time. I am not getting everything done when you should be able to get everything. So I'm just giving you an example. What's important is another one I really like. So what's next? Someone tells you their story, how they got involved in their business, or it's just, I hate using that word just, and I have a tendency to use it a lot. It's with a colleague and they're telling you something, or clients telling you something, and there's really no obvious solution in that moment because it's really a process, and you know that, being the expert you are. So actually asking what's next allows that person to think about how they want to proceed in the relationship. What's next? Tell me what's next. Really simple. Another one of what's next is what's the goal here? What's the goal here? Doesn't say, well, I hear someone telling me a struggle, and yeah, you can say, what's the struggle? And people can get really caught up. It's another question you can ask. What's the struggle? What you have to have is good boundaries around that question, because people can get so caught up in what they're struggling about when it's actually not the root cause of what they're struggling about. So you want to use that question a little bit more in the right context. So what's the goal, I think, is much better sometimes when you're first starting out with people. Another thing, the what if question. So what if you did this? Sometimes I say some not crazy stuff, but I'll go, what if, da, 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 and they went, oh my gosh, Lorianne, you're crazy. This is what I think it could happen. What did I just do? I went to a little bit of an extreme. So to get a reaction, because I knew in that moment they were a little stuck and since I was a little provocative, it allowed them to like snap out of it and go, no, here it is. So what if it can be used to present a solution, can be a little provocative to get them to respond so you get better information. So that's why these short questions, they allow the other person to really dig deep and for you to build a relationship on top of that. And, you know, sometimes when I hear from folks around, you know, what's not working for them and getting new clients, their lead generation, how their mind is stuck around business and money and sales. And I will say to ask them, which is not a short question, but I would definitely ask them, so tell me when it wasn't like that. And then the follow-up question is always, what's different now? Love that question too. What's different now? You'll get a lot of information from that. And another one is like, what's the focus? Another nuanced way of saying what's next, what's the focus, because sometimes you want to say what's the focus to narrow them, to really have them come in, because that's where they need to be if it's a client, and that's what you need for information to build the relationship. And you're just like talking about, and the conversation's gone off the rails a little bit. So to use the word, what's the question, what's the focus, is a great way to come back. What's the next step for you? As an obvious one, what made you, could be anything. What made you hire that person? What made you decide to go into this business? What made you decide to take a job? What made you decide to leave corporate America? We've got the great resignation going on. What made you? And people will tell you usually the root cause of something. And that's what I like about that question. What's the challenge for you right now? What's the challenge? What's the message? What is the message you want to get across to me, to your clients? What's the message? It's a really great 3-word question. What defines X? What defines you? What defines your business? What defines your clients for you? What defines another fantastic, quick question that works so well to move the conversation along, the relationship along, no matter the category they are in. And then another one is what works? What actually works for you? What works? What works? And the last one I want to talk about is a little different than struggle, is what gives you pause? It's not a problem yet, but they may be seeing something on the horizon. They can't quite articulate it, and it's important for the conversation because you've determined that. What gives you pause? Great, great question. So I think I've given you like a dozen questions that you can use not only in building relationships, but with your clients, with anybody that you want to have an authentic conversation with and get to know them, know their story, be present, take the relationship further. And I thought with the practical way we could tie this together today would be what kind of questions work well in so many situations when it comes to entrepreneurial leaders building and sustaining great relationships. And so I want to invite you to come into our Alchemy Leadership Mastermind. So wonderful to get entrepreneurial leaders together and to do a true mastermind where the connection and where you think you're going to go doesn't end up where you're going to go. Yes, we talk about business, but this is really whole person mastermind. Whole person is the only way for you to turn to be the person that you are here to be, to change the world with your business, with what you do, the expertise you have. And so if you are interested in coming into our mastermind, it's 6 months. I've got a detailed document I can send you. Just let me know, put it in the chat, put it in the comment area on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, wherever you're coming from. And I will be glad to send you the details and set up a time, 15 minutes, where we can find out if this is where you belong right now. It's not only about building relationships, like I said, it's about the whole person, you as a whole person in a community that is dedicated to being their best whole person and wanting you to win, to be successful. It's really an inner circle of folks that really are committed to being the best version of themselves, which shows up in their business, which shows up in their families, which shows up in their psychology, which shows up in their leadership, which shows up everywhere. And because the personal is the professional is the personal. And I know there are a lot of you that say, just tell me how to do something, like get more clients, have a sale. Those are all important things. Those are the logistical sides of your business, and they can't be ignored either. But the transformational side of you and your business and your life are just as important, and they affect each other. So I'm inviting you to come into our mastermind for 6 months and to have a fantastic transformation that you will not believe where you will be in 6 months from now. So let me know. I'll send you the details. We'll set up a short time to talk, and we'll see if this is a good fit for you. Bye for now. We will see you on day 5 on our training tomorrow. And to wrap up everything we've done, go try those questions, and I will see you tomorrow.